Yes, greetings again. Dr. Njegede is my name. So, in my inbox, I have this question. I have I have seen these questions over and over. These questions over and over. I say question because it's more than one. In the course of my involvement in a lot of salary design or reward strategy or reward, you know, redesign or competency framework. So I've seen this coming over and over and again. And these are the questions. Many HRM have asked me these questions that what are the positions of the laws when it has to do with percentage element for salary computations? For example, what should be the percentage for basic, for housing, for transport, and for other variables elements? So many have asked me that question. And the second question is, okay, if the percentages are arbitrarily designed, what are the implications on leave allowance, on 13-month bonuses, and other bonuses? Now, let me quickly say this that if you check through carefully on the provisions of the Labour Act of Nigeria, this question is based on Nigeria. I'm not going to talk about what's applicable in Kenya, in Zimbabwe, in Tanzania, in South Africa, in US, in UK. I'm just talking about what happened or applies in Nigeria. Now, if you go through the Labour Act carefully, you will observe that Labour law did not say anything about appropriations of percentages or what percentages should you allocate your basic, your housing, your transport, and other variables. Why? You will be asking why. Now, the reason is because the law allows contractual agreement to decide and to prevail on certain engagements. So the law is not particular about what percentage you allocate to your basic, to housing, to transport, or what you make to be your component. But let me take you quickly back to history. Before the Pension Reforms Act came up in 2004, many organizations have so many components that make up the emoluments. Apart from that, in some other organizations, they don't even have this component broken down. They only say your gross salary is 300,000, it's 1 million. They don't have components. They just do like that. And then they decide the leave or whatever at their own discretion. Okay. Whether it's good or bad, I won't talk about that now, but I'm going somewhere. So when the Pension Reforms Act came up in 2004, maybe I should remind again that the purpose of bringing it up was number one, to review the existence of NSITF. Because if you look at the NSITF, then it was not active, it was not functional, it's owned by the government. So government regulate the entire contributions, and then the penalty is about 5%, very small on basic. And to get it, you have to attain retirement age of 60, 65 years. And then you don't get a lot as you have for pension. So you don't get a lot. You don't even know how much you have until, and we have to do it manually. We carry cash to go and remit. I used to go and remit that time at Ijora. So when Pension Reforms Act came up, the pension reformers were to reset so many, maladies and abnormalities in that system. And one of the things that pension reformers did was to establish critical major or three components that at least amongst all other variables should be in a regular salary. Number one, it speaks to basic, it speaks to housing, and it speaks to transport, which is called BHT. But there's one thing to look through again. As you look at the component of the Pension Reforms Act, it never said this is what your basic should be. I mean, in terms of percentage determinant for employer. No, it only says that Pension Reforms Act will pick 15%. Are you getting me? Now, sorry, we pick that one. I'm talking about the then because it used to be 15% before we came to the 18%. So this 50% that is going to come up is just marginally going to come from an employer and employee. Are you getting me? And it will focus on these three basic housing transports. When it was revised or reformed in 2010, then it says no, 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 no. The 50% won't fly. That was what led to 18%, 10% from employer, and then 8% from employee. That has to come from basic housing transport. Even at that, it does not decide for an employer what should be, the component of basic or housing and transport in their salary. You only decide that, okay, we will pick 8% from the employee, and this has to come from basic housing transport. So the Pension Reforms Act enables many employers to redefine their salary components at least these three major components are fundamentals: basic, housing, transport. So when this came into fruition or into full force because of the Pension Reforms Act, many employers have to adjust their salary strategy or reward strategy to include this mandatorily. So the use of gross pay, are you getting it, without components, became null and void because employee want to know how much are you going to deduct for my basic, for my housing, for my transport, for what? For the pension. Now, all through, as I said, there is no universal formula that says your basic must be 13% or 30% or 40% or 50%, and your housing must be this. There's no formula. Therefore, most employers decide at their own discretion what should be. However, that discretion is not left without some computational mathematics and some very important element. And that element is what I'm going to share. Now, this is what you have to understand. If you also are conversant with the tax system, particularly PE, you will also understand that our PE has moved or metaphors over and over and over to the point that there is no allowance that is not going to be taxed. Now, why is basic important? It's because it forms a lot of critical elements in determining components. Why? In many companies, you use basic for leave, you use basic for bonus, and you use basic to determine even overtime. So, because of that, employees are always interested in the value placed on basic salaries. Therefore, as you look at many salary composition, you will see that basic salary is always carrying almost the highest. But things have changed. When the structure came into existence, it affected a lot of reward strategy and management system. Therefore, it therefore suggests today that it is not compulsory that your basic should carry high components. For an employer, you can decide whatever component or percentages you want to allocate or any other emolument like basic, like housing, like transport, like entertainment, like whatever component you want to put. But this is the idea. Employer realize that the higher your basic, the higher your housing, the higher your transport, the more you pay for pension. And now this is vice versa. Many employees are now agitating and saying, no, 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 no. I don't think I can go on with peanuts and deposit high amount of money into my pension, and I'm not even 50. And this pension, I'm not even sure I will live, God forbid, to even repeat. And even aside that, why should I define my future when I should enjoy my money now? In the face of current inflations, many employees argue that no, please, I want my take home to be high and my pension to be little. Not that my pension should be high and my take home should be little. I need to be able to enjoy myself at the moment. Therefore, employees have advocated in many places that no, can you defray our basic housing transport and place it on other allowances so that the take home can be higher? It has two effects. The effect on employee is that when your basic housing transport is high, your pension is high, your take home is lower. When your basic housing transport are lower, your pension is smaller, but your take home is higher. So you have to choose in between the two. However, as a result of this, many companies are no longer using basic salary to determine leave allowance. The same way, if you go through the labor law does not say, okay, your leave allowance must be 5%, must be 10%. The law always provides minimum. For example, it says minimum of 6 days as leave, but it doesn't say that every organization should place an employee on 6 days. So it only provides you minimum threshold. Therefore, most leave allowances are determined by the organization. Some says our own is that you take 100% of your monthly salary. Some say no, it's 10% of your annual gross salary. Some say it's 10% of your annual basic salary. But when you observe that in your organization, your base salary is very, very low. Many companies no longer use the game. Some use half of your monthly salary so that you don't suffer the consequence of low basic salary. So to answer that question, as you asked me, to determine the component or composition of your basic, of your transport, of your housing is at organizational prerogative. However, as you design your salary, you must look at the cause and the effect. If your basic and housing and transport are very small because you are trying to minimize the impact of pension on employee, then when you are paying leave allowance or you are paying 30-month bonus, then you don't base it on basic alone because the employee will suffer the consequence. Because employee will say, okay, if my basic is low, my pension is low, my leave allowance is low, I suffer. Therefore, as employer, what should you do as HR? If you know that in your company, your basic housing and transport are very small, because you are trying to save employee from poor or low take home, then your leave allowance should not be based on your basic so that the employee don't suffer. Now, many have asked me, what can we based on? Well, I leave that for your discretion and to organization. But my answer is that your basic salary, your housing and transport, they are not actually established by any statutory guideline that they must be exact percentage. You can vary them in content and in context. Thank you. I hope this helps. And I look forward to more questions with regards to salary administration. Thank you. Bye.